welcome to Dream Machine. My name is Arun.
And my name is Patricia.
You alright, Patricia?
We have more penguins. Yay. I was thinking...
Okay.
As much as I, enjoyed some parts of the Madagascar series, and I was hoping that maybe we can just move on to something really good. Because, we last week with, Peabody and Sherman, I was thinking that maybe we can, talk about something like really nice to offset that, but
like
no.
Maybe a kung fu fighting kanda.
Yeah, that would be so amazing. Or how to Tron du Gragun, but no, we have to go back to penguins again.
Yeah, I just say kung fu fighting kanda all of a sudden. For kung fu fighting panda. There we go. My voice
okay.
works.
I thought you were speaking in like a lead speak term.
I don't know what's going on with me right now, but I don't know. Maybe because watching this movie, I think, has probably broken my brain. I don't know, but anyway, we were hoping that I was hoping actually this week that we were going to be watching Kung Fu Panda 3, but then Patricia reminded me that we still have some other movies to go before then. So
yeah, I know it. It's like Aaron just blew up a nice balloon, and then I just popped it, and I pretty much just broke his dreams.
You meanie.
I know, I'm awful.
I want my balloon back. Well, yeah.
Don't worry, you'll get your balloon back in 2 weeks from now.
Okay then. So anyway, until then, let's talk about this movie. So here we go. So after the success of Madagascar, it was only natural that the Penguins of Madagascar would get their own movie. It is a computer-generated action-adventure comedy film directed and produced by DreamWorks Animation and is distributed by 20th Century Fox. The Penguins of Madagascar is the film that's premiered on the November 26th of 2014 and is the DreamWorks Animation's 30th movie, but despite the fact that this came on Thanksgiving, I don't feel very thankful for it.
Yeah, I mean, very similar to when we were discussing about Puss in Boots. The Shrek franchise was already kind of done. Madagascar didn't really suffer the same thing in terms of everybody was getting sick of it. But when it came to the Penguins were pretty much everywhere. As mentioned before, there was a Penguins of Madagascar TV series, and there were lots of penguin shorts, very similar to Mater shorts when Cars was popular. So yeah, the Penguins were pretty much like the stars of the entire franchise, and that's the reason why they were if you ever to look up Madagascar, the penguins would pop up a lot more than the main characters themselves. And to be quite honest, now I can understand Puss in Boots. I mean, we did talk about that. It was just so much story going on with so minor characters. But with Puss in Boots, I can kind of understand why it would spin off into a series. And as a marketing perspective, again, I understand why they would spin off into a Penguins movie. But I was just tired at that point.
Here's the thing about this. I actually welcome the Penguins movie. And here's the thing about this, because, in Madagascar, we didn't really get to know Skipper, Private Rico, and Kowalski all that well, because we only just saw them in kind of like skits. So,
it is true, yeah. But again, if you did watch the TV series, you got an idea of what they what kind of personalities
here's the thing about this, Patricia, because you've probably seen the TV series, but I've not seen one episode.
Okay, fair enough.
So, the Penguins of Madagascar, for me, is still pretty obscure because I'm only seeing it from the movies. Here's the thing about this. You're going to know this through Dream Machine. I have barely watched a single episode of, I've not watched How to Train Your Dragon TV series. I've not watched any of the other TV series, and I've definitely not watched the Penguins of Madagascar. So, in regards to the movie we're about to watch here, I'm watching this with clean eyeballs.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. So, let's talk about this movie. So the movie actually begins off with a prologue taking place before the movie, and then we get to see, the kind of origin story of the penguins themselves.
Yeah, but here's the thing about this. I think this movie starts off backwards.
Yeah, to be fair, it makes a lot of sense because it's trying to be like a prologue into these are how the penguins came to be. So, so we have these, we have Skipper, Kowalski, and Rico, and they basically save an egg from the other penguins, and it turns out that when the egg hatches, Private is born.
Yeah,
and so
that bit of the movie I don't have a problem with. To be quite honest
No,
with
no,
you.
I
And,
didn't either.
the fact that they have like the sea lions, like as and they start them off, I think, as the threat. I think of the at the beginning of the movie, which I thought, oh, okay, then I think this is going to be who the villain is going to be. But then we move into them going into steal some gold bullion from Fort Knox, which I thought, okay, I mean, this is going to be like probably like the biggest heist you're probably ever gonna do. I don't know. Maybe there's going to be even bigger things we're going to do with the penguins. But and then it kind of moves away into this kind of weird introduction to really a villain who is basically this octopus called Dave, who's disguised as a human. And here's the thing about this. I mean, wouldn't it have made more sense to bring the octopus, to say the octopus form of the villain, and save that for like the end, at least the end of the second act? I mean, why not just reveal him as in his human form, and then bring the shock in that he is this octopus that was shipped from say the thing, and some people say it's kind of ridiculous in that, but keep in mind, I mean, Hot Fuzz had a pretty ridiculous twist, and people thought that was hilarious. And I think that kind of twist would have been quite hilarious if he was put off. But instead, they put it in the first act, which makes totally no sense.
And to be fair, there have been villains in the TV series, but never. I don't remember, seeing that character for sure. I do know that there was.
I don't have a problem with it being a fresh villain. That's no problem for me, and to be also being introduced into the original story. It's just the fact that why blow your load? Right at the beginning of the movie. I mean, why not save it until leave some mystery for later on in the film.
I guess they wanted. I guess because that the Penguin series were very well known for being comedic. I guess they were like, yeah, we can't just fully rely on comedy. The Penguins are very well known for being like stealthy. Let's see if we can add a villain in there to kind of give it more of an appeal.
But Patricia, why reveal that he's an octopus in the first act?
I have no idea. I mean, there's a lot of things that appear in this movie that I question, and your guess is as good as mine.
I just think it was a bad move, I think. And because to me, the villain to me just wasn't memorable at all. It was just he's angry because he was being moved around from place to place because of those penguins. I would have really liked if they would have had a villain from the TV series appear in the movie. I know that Penguins in Madagascar, the movie, the argument I would say about that is the argument I'd have about that is that I've not watched the TV series. So if you introduced a character that was from the TV show, I wouldn't know who he was. So
it would have been a nice introduction if they would have put a villain from the TV series into the movie. Maybe to kind of draw people in to watch the TV series.
No, I think unless you're going to explain who he is and why he's relevant in the film story, then I would stay clear of that.
Okay, that's fair, but still, I would have liked to have maybe seen at least maybe a cameo or maybe a throwback to maybe some of the villains like Dr. Blowhole or the Rat King or Hans or something like that. But I guess because this is supposed to be a movie that's far away from the TV series and more focused on being a continuation of the movie series, then I can understand that.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the very beginning, they're trying to get away from the Afro Circus theme. So that's continuing on from the third movie.
So, right.
Yeah. So for me, it has a continuity with the movie series and not with the TV show.
Okay.
So they're introducing this octopus villain who makes this Medusa serum, and no one knows what basically it does. And so they steal it, and then they run away, and they're about to get captured by the octopuses again. Until then, we're introduced to this really random group of people who are known as the North Wind. And,
I didn't understand that, to be quite honest.
I mean, it's kind of like how it kind of reminds. The only thing it kind of reminds me of is you remember that episode of the first episode of Dexter's Laboratory, the TV series.
Sure.
Yeah, like Mandoc, Dexter's rival Mandoc. That's just kind of what it reminds.
He just appears right out of nowhere saying, "Hey, I'm smarter than you," and he pretty much just became the genius, and Dexter was kind of overlooked.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is the thing. It kind of it kind of makes, for the majority of the film, it makes the penguins look weaker. Which
I don't know. Maybe they try to like introduce more characters to broaden out the franchise. Very similar to how in Puss in Boots we were introduced to characters like Humpty Dumpty and Jack and Jill and um the female kitty character. I guess they wanted to like broaden out the world, but now I think that introducing all of these characters into this movie kind of like diminishes the stealthy coolness of the penguins.
Yeah, and on top of that as well, like again, it makes them look like. I mean, it makes the North Wind look like the serious people in the movie, and it just makes the penguins of Madagascar look like the comic relief. Which,
Yeah, in a way, I kind of wish that they would have been like the main focus. It's like, make
yeah.
a standalone movie just about the North Wind. Don't have it anything to do with the Penguins. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if originally that's what they wanted to do. But then they were like, yeah, we didn't do very well with Peabody and Sherman. It was a box office failure, and so was Turbo. We need to make our money back. So let's see if we can just throw in, the Penguins in for marquee value.
Well, I mean, I think it was inevitable the Penguins were going to get the movie anyway. So I don't think it was the fact that they were under pressure by Turbo or by Peabody and Sherman. I think we knew inevitably there was going to be a Penguins movie, and so and either that, if they weren't going to do that, they were going to make a fourth Madagascar film. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I
as
mean,
of the making of this podcast, there is no Madagascar 4, but anything could happen.
yeah, anything could happen at this point. Who knows? But so we end up with this, and again, I hate the fact that this movie makes the Penguins look so. Just I get this is supposed to be a comical film, but I mean, come on, guys. I mean, like these Penguins were nothing like they when we were introduced to them in the first movie.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's why it's a really huge disappointment for me personally because the Penguins were, like the standouts of the series. And you would think that a movie about them would just showcase about how cool they are. I mean, I mean, at first I was
well,
thinking
don't
about.
get me wrong. I would like it if the Penguins were cool, but at the same time they had flaws. And we knew they had
yeah,
flaws.
that is true. I mean,
Yeah.
last week on Peabody and Sherman, we did talk about how Mr. Peabody was kind of like a Mary Sue character in which there was no flaws to him, and that's how he was in the TV series. And then I guess the transition from the TV series from the '60s to the recent movie wasn't like a good transition for him.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I guess you could say. I mean, that's the great. I think that's one positive thing about the Penguins is that they're a bit more flawed than Peabody was. But in regards to how silly and comical they were, like it was. There was one bit where they said in the movie like, "Oh, we're going to take this to their grave," but they'd done even more sillier stuff even before then, like when they were being the distraction. And even then, that didn't make really all that much sense. And it's just, they looked really weak in this movie. Like, I mean, again, it was funny that a lot of things were happening, out of the luck of the draw. Like it's kind of like that side character in Deadpool 2, the person who basically her superpower was luck. And like everything that happened, that she was able to either not die or be able to kick bad guys' asses because it was just pure luck that she managed to do it. That in itself was funny. But the fact that the Penguins are just getting off by the seat of their pants and like only just getting away with what they're doing, like it really does take away from the mystique and from the what we were introduced to in the first film. And again, like I get the movie trying to flesh them out, but I mean they're not fleshed out in the best of ways.
I exactly. And if you were going to throw in like a villain, then try to make a villain that's maybe like just as funny as the Penguins are, or somebody like really incompetent. That way the Penguins can kind of like showcase how cool they were. I mean, I wasn't expecting like Kung Fu Panda levels of awesome villains in terms of them being very diabolical or sinister. But I think that with the storyline with the Medusa serum, I did like the direction it was going. But when we got introduced to the North Wind, it kind of like deflated a little bit. It's like, oh, that they could have done a much better job than the Penguins. But
there's
one thing that I do like about this part of the movie was that the penguins, one of the penguins does get affected by the serum, and one of the machines, I think, and they actually do have to work hard in order for them to get them back to normal.
Well, yeah, that's what happens at the end of the movie. So
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I kind of liked. I kind of like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, the bit between Pirate and Skipper was. Well, yeah, that bit. I think that's, mind you, that's pretty standard. I think for kind of movie telling like that, like
Yeah,
at this point.
I know it's standard, but it was kind of needed for something like Penguins.
Yeah, I guess.
Because
but,
I mean, it was nice to see like a dramatic point for the Penguins, especially since they're mostly played for comedy. So I know it was standard, but I kind of liked it.
I guess that was probably the best part of the movie. But here's the thing about this. We've got all this comical stuff going on in this movie. Did you laugh once?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either. Like again, it's just.
I mean, to be fair,
it was the wrong direction to go in, I think.
Yeah, but to be fair, I didn't like fully laugh laugh really hard whenever I saw the penguins in the Madagascar series. I mean, I had a chuckle or I just smiled, but here I didn't really do any of that in this movie.
I don't know. I thought in Madagascar, in some of the Madagascar skits, I thought they were funny.
Yeah, I thought they were funny too, but not like where I laughed really loudly though.
Yeah, I don't know. It was there were some bits I did chuckle at, and
chuckle, yes, or smile, but not laugh out
I thought
loud.
I thought they were. I mean, obviously they're not laugh out loud funny, but at least they were clever.
Yeah, they were clever.
Yeah, so.
But I couldn't find a lot here in this movie.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did like in this movie that wasn't as much in the Madagascar series because they were limited to one location. They got to travel into many countries, which I did, like because it was able to keep the settings fresh.
Well, I mean, that was part of the course anyway for the Madagascar series. So
yeah, I know, but considering that we had with the Madagascar series that it was just stuck to one location. The first one we had New York and Madagascar. The second one we had Africa, and the third one we had Europe.
Well, Europe's not a country; that's a continent. So
I mean, the location I meant.
Well, no, if you in Madagascar 3, they travel from Italy to France to the UK, and then they travel all the way back to Austria. So
and then they went back to New York at the end.
They travel lots of places in Madagascar 3.
Yeah, I guess they wanted to follow in the same trend. It's we need to go to multiple places. And with the penguins kind of being the spies that they are, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it would have been a crime if they just stuck into one location, because that was a crime in the TV series as well, in which they just stuck in the zoo and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So, we had all of that, and then, I mean, there's not much else really to it. I mean, it's a pretty standard action comedy film. The North Wind aren't particularly spectacular. The penguins, unfortunately fall flat in this movie. In hoping that we're gonna see more of a expansion of their characters, but really all we did was basically just see how goofy they were. No, we didn't really see how I would like to have seen a bit, have them a bit far more fleshed out than that. Where do they get their cunningness? Where do they get? I mean, obviously we saw the prologue at the very beginning of the film, but I don't know. For me, there wasn't much. They didn't really explain them all that well in that. So for me, the penguins are just this hasn't really moved them into any main event status. They're still just side characters in the Madagascar film who just happen to get a spin-off movie.
Yeah. I mean, at least with Puss in Boots, we actually got to know about his backstory and where he came from.
Yeah, well, I mean, Antonio Banderas, I think, was going to give Puss in Boots a far more character. I think in this with the penguins, I think we move on to the characters anyway because we're moving into that point. But Tom McGrath, Christopher Knight, Conrad Vernon, Chris Miller, and John Malkovich. John Malkovich plays the evil.
He plays one of the villains.
Yeah. Well, Chris
you're talking about Conrad Vernon.
Well, yeah, the guys, unfortunately, I hate to say this, they just. They give them voices, but in regards to, Tom McGrath, when he goes into emotional moments, he did really well in that regard. And I guess you could say Christopher Knight tries to, not ham it up too much, I guess, in his reactions with Private. But I don't know. I think the only person out of the whole lot I could say I had a lot of fun with. I guess I could say was Skipper.
Yeah, I mean Skipper's like the most popular out of the Penguins because he's the leader and he's the brash one, and yeah, a lot of people.
The thing, like in this they made Private as just as important, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Which really, it's kind of like taking. Imagine if you had Star Fox, right, and you had Fox McCloud, and if you knew Fox McCloud is the main, he's the guy you play as in the games. Like, imagine if you had a situation where probably like the final act of the game, you didn't get to fight Andros as Fox McCloud, you had to fight him as Slippy. It's just that's very anticlimactic in that. And I don't know. I just thought. With Private being, obviously, it does click with some people, but for me, it just doesn't. It's kind of like, it's this is the story that we've got, and
I guess I can kind of understand why they decided to focus on Private in the last act, because in the beginning of the movie, it was like we learned that Private was adopted into the Penguins trio because they found him as an egg, and I guess they wanted to give him like a redemption arc because Private was always seen as like the rookie of the group, kind of like somebody that you didn't really take too seriously. But yeah, as for like the climax of the entire movie, it would have been nice if maybe like all of them would have been involved, or maybe Skipper and Private would have been involved. But yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from.
Yeah. So,
the one thing I do have to say is that, the fact that John Malkovich plays as a villain in this, I guess, he finally does get to play a villain in an animated, movie, considering that originally he was supposed to play Professor Screw Eyes and We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, and then they fired him. Because he couldn't play the part right, and they brought in let's see, what was they brought in Kenny Mars, and he was like pissed off of it ever since. So I guess this is kind of like his redemption, that hey, he gets to finally play as a villain in an animated movie.
Yeah, but Penguins of Madagascar. He's not exactly playing a villain in a Disney movie, is he? So,
no, he's not. But that's true.
Yeah. Actually, how sad is that point? With some villains that we've talked about in DreamWorks animation movies, they're nowhere near to the power of like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, or Jafar from Aladdin, or or Syndrome from The Incredibles.
Exactly. Like when you look at the villains from DreamWorks, most of them are pretty par for the course. There's only like a few standouts, whether it be from either Shrek 2 with the fairy godmother, or the peacock character from Kung Fu Panda 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do agree. Even with Pixar, they had memorable villains, like the Prospector from Toy Story 2, or Syndrome from The Incredibles. So yeah, I think that one of the things that Pixar plays smartly is that not all the time do there have to be villains. You don't have to add villains to everything to have conflict in the movie. Finding Nemo didn't have a villain, and it had a lot of conflict with Marlin trying to find Nemo at the right time. I guess you could say Darla is, but she's just a kid. Yeah. Toy Story didn't have a villain either. You could say Sid, but he's just a kid too.
Sid was the villain, quote unquote, of the of Toy Story. And in a way, he was a villain because he knew what he was doing was wrong, and he did it anyway.
True.
And so I think you can safely say that Sid was a villain of Toy Story, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess you could say that, but not like a villain that you in a traditional sense.
Well, hell, even Lotso from Toy Story 3, who we think is probably, did we say he was the weaker villain? I think in Pix Mix.
I think I don't know. I think that I think so, but we still did like Lotso's character. I remember that when we went to Disney World, we went to one of the shops and we pulled out a Lotso bear, and the first thing you wanted to do was punch it.
Okay, that was a joke. Okay, so,
I know, but I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too. That's the reason I did it. But so far, I think going through DreamMachine, and we're on movie 30 at the minute. Here we've got who I think this villain. At least we're talking about here, Dave. I mean, like, it would have been more effective, I think, if they'd, kept him as, like, in his human form to begin with. But then you kind of, like, had inklings that he probably wasn't as human as people thought they were. And then, probably, maybe, not towards the very end, but maybe to, like, the end of the second act when, it's being played up and when Private gets kidnapped, that it is revealed that, he's actually an octopus. And, maybe even then, they probably should have stuck in, like, maybe a little bit of story where they actually did wrong him, and, he's captured, he's kidnapping, he's not only just kidnapping the penguins just to get his, like, insane for revenge, but he's also kidnapping Private, too, to get back at Skipper.
Yeah, like maybe he would have been like like one of the zoo animals, and maybe he was like transferred somewhere else, and the penguins kind of like did him wrong, and so then he decided to get revenge on them. I think that would have been pretty clever.
Yeah, so... I mean, in a way, they did at the beginning. Like, they just didn't. It was just inadvertent that it happened. Because if you remember, the penguins came in and kicked him out of the Manhattan Zoo, but it wasn't their fault that he got removed. It was the fact that they strayed into New York waters and ended up getting put in the zoo. So.
Yeah, that's true. I would have liked to have his like character flesh out a little bit more.
Yeah. By the way, there is. I've got to note something at the very. I didn't see the mid-credit scene. By the way, this is one thing also I don't do as well. Like, when the credits happen, like sometimes I don't have time to like actually watch through all the credits to see if anything happened. But apparently, someone told me in mid-credit scene, the penguins return to the circus and Mort plays into the ray and uses him as a revert Private back to normal. Mort doesn't appear to show any side effects from the ray until he manages to swallow King Julian whole.
Right.
So, so apparently even again, I'm really glad they didn't leave him as like that, because that would have been pretty strange. But,
I guess they decided to like pull a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie in which, let's have something in the mid-credit scene. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, that was Penguins of Madagascar, and as you can probably imagine, we didn't think all that much of it, really. So,
yeah, and once again, even though it did make a decent amount of money, it was still considered to be a box office failure.
Yeah.
Because around that time, when this movie came out around Thanksgiving, there were other films that were out at the time, such as The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1. So... they had to do a write-down because the movie wasn't as successful as previous movies. And they did the same thing for movies such as Turbo and Mr. Peabody and Sherman. So this is kind of like at the point in which we would see, like, DreamWorks starting to have, like, its downhill point. In fact, this would be the final movie in DreamWorks that would be produced by Pacific Data Images, because it would shut down in 2015.
Mm-hmm. So, until our next film, and what do we got next?
We got, coming up next on DreamMachine, we have the movie that is riding on the popularity of Rihanna. We're going to be talking about Home.
Oh, boy. So, until then, I'm Aaron.
I'm Patricia.
Take care, and bye for now.
See you later.